Although I had understood many references from the movie Jaws, it wasn't until middle school that I actually saw the movie full length. And the next day, we were going to the beach. Now, you have to imagine, I'm a kid who loves animals, and honestly, I thought sharks were one of the coolest things for God knows how many years. But when I finally got in the water that day, beautiful day, it was a bit difficult. There was a hesitation in my step. And although shark attacks in the area where I was at were extremely rare, that fear still persisted. Something that my parents commented on later that day. It was almost comical, but that's the true fear of the ocean. Especially when you're in an area where you can't see what's at your feet. That's just not where we were. I think that's part of what makes the ocean so terrifying. It's not only that we can't see, but that there's this deep fear of the unknown. But before I dive into more about this crap with the ocean, and yes, I did just unironically make that pun, screw you, this is Knight from the King's Cabinet Podcast, and welcome to my segment where I talk about things from a meta-philosophical perspective. So, prepare to get a little pretentious with me because I'm about to explain from, at least from my really weird and demented mind, what I think is really going on with our brains when we think about the ocean. The fear of the dark makes sense for us humans. We don't have very good eyesight in the dark compared to many animals, so naturally we'd be more averse to that kind of thing. And just really consider for a moment that the same thing kind of applies to the ocean. When people talk about how weird and creepy and just terrifying it can be in those darkest depths, we're not talking about the crystal clear waters in like Fiji or the Caribbean. We're talking about Marianas Trench. We're talking about the sea basins, the Twilight Zone. But what about that is so terrifying? Aside from big scary fish that may or may not be lurking around the corner trying to eat me. It's that we're terrified to seek out what we don't understand. And it's a sad state of affairs, but that's how humanity is. Whoa, Knight. Didn't you say in a prior segment that we're constantly trying to understand more, seek more about the universe and knowledge? Now, that is correct. What I mean to say in that we don't try to be as adventurous with certain things is that we're afraid of ourselves. Really think about it for a second. We got a man on the moon, and then we started to study the moon, and we understand that more than our own oceans. We put a man on a celestial body that isn't even attached to our planet, and yet what's on our planet is less understood to us. It's what happens when you shoot for the stars. It's what happens when we're so focused on looking up. Really think about this for a second here. We seek the transcendent in our lives. And that's not a bad thing. Or at least, if you don't seek the transcendent, I hope you do. We should always be seeking to improve, to strive for greater things. But where I think this ties into the ocean is that we're not willing to look on our own turf. We're very easy to seek out other things, look at what other people do, criticize them, before we criticize ourselves, before we understand more about ourselves. I'm sure you've heard the adage of, I know that person better than he knows himself. That's the ocean for you. If we know more about the surface of the moon than the ocean, that's just a reflection of humanity and how we view ourselves. The moon presents, in some ways, easier challenges to overcome than the ocean, whereas the ocean has an impending amount of pressure barreling down at you at any given time. The moon is the opposite. It's weightless. And you have to bring your own oxygen, otherwise you'll suffocate and die. In a way, that's kind of how we see ourselves and other people. Sure, understanding other people can be a challenge, but there's less weight on other people as there is on ourselves. Think about it. How many people are afraid to self-criticize because they might be afraid to seek the darkness within themselves, the depths that will be so crushing that if they ever were to reach it, they might not come back the same person, if at all. That's what the ocean truly is for us. We are the depths. Everyone else is the moon. Something I didn't even consider when writing this video and pondering the subject was that the moon and ocean comparison is so apt. Because without the moon, we don't have tides. We don't have flow in the ocean. And that's how people are too. We don't change without one another. We remain static. I'm about to talk about order and chaos again. Sure, there would be order if we just remain separate, but that there's a good kind of chaos that comes from the pull that others have on you and that you have on them. If you're not able to affect people in a good way, then they will suffer. But like the moon, that's what allows us to have tides, and that brings so much benefit to us on Earth. If we're able to provide a good pull for others, they will benefit. But it's important to understand about yourself too is that you can't allow yourself to avoid the depths. There's always going to be something terrifying lurking within you. And you might not be equipped to tackle that yet. And that's fine. I find with myself, there are many things that even I don't understand and will not understand without the help of other people. And I've been on this earth for 23 years and I'm still learning so much. And God willing, I'll learn much more in the future. There will come a time where submarines will become so advanced that we will discover every bit of the ocean with all the beauty and terror that it provides, the alien world that it houses. But remember, that alien world, that's right in our own backyard, proverbially speaking. The same is true for yourself, because there's so much that you don't understand. Obviously, you should be responsible with how you go about discovering yourself. I'm not saying you should make bad decisions, and I'm not saying you should necessarily make reckless ones. But what I'm saying is, be careful, and you'll be able to unearth and dive deep into whatever terrors and beauty lies within you. Because there can be good and bad in the depths. But until you overcome your fear of the deep water, the darkness, you'll never change. That got a little deep, and son of a gun, that was unintentional. I think I've spoken enough about this. Thank you for listening to this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a like, leave a comment. Please subscribe to us here at TKCRG 2021. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at the same handle. Joker and I also do Twitch streams, so please follow us at JokerP598 and that one Jackal Sniper 117. This is a particularly fun video to make, and if you want more depth on this subject, son of a gun, I keep unintentionally making these puns. Anyway, if you want more sort of information on this stuff, Solar Sands did a great video about thalassophobia, which talks about fear of the deep ocean. And he kind of gets into some of the stuff that I do, but from a more artistic perspective. So please give his stuff a watch. See you guys in the next one. Peace.